Hey guys, it's always funny that Martin and me always talk together at events. Well, we were at the first Angular event and he always does the very technical talk and mine won't be as technical, it will be more anecdotal, so bear with me. So I was thinking to play the music of the movie, but then I didn't want to impose my bad music taste on all of you of the 80s. So the disclaimer and agenda of this talk is any resemblance to real code is intended. All events described in this presentation actually happened. No persons were harmed, except probably my brain. And all I want to say is it's a bit more about what type of problems did we encounter during all the years we're doing now front-end development in Storyful and our solutions and best practices. So Storyful actually is, we have a development team of roughly 10 people now, but it started out 5 years ago with actually 2 people, or 1 more or less, our CTO. And it started out with mainly browser extensions for the journalists who are working with us. And then more and more products came on. So for example, at the moment we have 1 client-facing product in beta, which is written with jQuery and JS. And all the other applications are written in Angular actually. So I just want to go quickly through what we came across when we develop in plain JavaScript or vanilla JavaScript. And probably a lot of these problems are obvious to many people. But for example, one thing is you have multiple developers develop on the same code base and you get style inconsistencies, such as indentation, placement of braces, inconsistent placement of variables, etc. You have also different instantiation patterns, so you use the object versus the literal notation, and so on and so forth. So one thing we had to do was actually, because our product team grew actually quite quick last year or beginning of this year, so we had to sit down and say, okay, we need to unify our style across all the across all the developers, and we use now editor config, which helps us to define kind of indentation for problems. For example, we decided finally on a style guide. We recommend, for example, Airbnbs. I think Martin had this in his slides as well. They are really good. They have also for ES6 the new style guide out as well. And we are enforcing style guides with tools such as JS Hint, for example. And because we're working on multiple projects, we set them on a per project basis. Another best practice we started is deploying or running something when deploying, which is called Code Climate, which gives you an automated code review for languages such as Ruby, JavaScript, and Python. And you see here, it usually checks the code. It runs JS Hint, but it does also some proprietary reviews of your code, and everything which is which is worse than D needs to be fixed immediately. The problem is with Code Climate, it's not picture perfect, because sometimes it gives bad ratings for minified JavaScript libraries, for example, and so you have to exclude them, which is not really the point. It's kind of like, I feel like cheating a lot of the times. So then, testing the code. You all know this probably. We, like for example, for us, we move in a quite fast-paced environment, and we have a lot of features to finish or to plow through, and the thing which goes down the gutters is the code quality, and it's not tested. So I know that he's right. One does not simply test code in production. So we started actually recently, because all our backend is written in Ruby on Rails, and we use behavioral-driven tests there via RSpec, for example. So we started using the Jasmine framework for front-end tests there as well. And Jasmine, not only because you can actually run plain Java, like vanilla JavaScript with it, you can test it, but you can also it has very good support for Angular, for example. Karma is a test runner for to use Jasmine with Angular, and that ensures just that existing features will work. So this is just a really, really simple test I show you here. This is real code, and it's, please bear with me guys, it's not a proper super test. There can be way better ones. It's just to show you that it's this behavioral driven testing, where you can actually test that a certain method or a certain class has the functions. Then another thing we started is, you see here on the right hand side, the nothing, or I don't remember what's it called actually in English, we use too many global variables. So, and there's always the danger then of the namespace collision. And also we have a lot of spaghetti code because jQuery, you have all these event handlers and promises. So one thing we did was, the first thing we started on our project, for example, we refactored the code into modules with private and public methods, tried to use the closure pattern where possible. But the problem is that gets you only that far, and that's where we are now actually. For example, with my project, it leads to more maintainable modules, but you still have code duplication, especially when dealing with representational data, and you still have a growing code size. You don't get rid of all this spaghetti code. So we needed to introduce a JavaScript framework that structures code into model views and controllers. And that's where we are with Angular, or that's where Angular came into place. So Angular was started, we started developing in mid-2013 with Angular, and by, let's say, now we have one client-facing product which is actually really used, 3 browser extensions, but it's not without its problems. So the following slides were actually taken from a talk which I made, which was called Angular, the good, the bad, the ugly, and that was actually the part of the bad. So when we started, this was a project, you see here, the idea was, you see a timeline of the last 60 minutes or an hour, and you see all the topics which are of interest in this hour, and then all the related tweets. So it's kind of like a heat map of incoming topics. It's especially very useful for a journalist to find current breaking news, for example, like said Blattner died this evening. That would be really bad then, and you will see all the tweets related to that one. The problem with this one is, you see here, you have a grid with 20 rows, 60 data points. Each data point has additional data bindings, so you have a lot of data bindings, and this was really slow to load. And the problem is that this is one of the founders of Angular said, unfortunately, it's way too easy to add slow comparison into Angular, so it's easy to build slow apps when you don't know what you're doing. Because of Angular's dirty checking the data bindings, it will lead to performance issues. And you really need to read it. So when you start Angular is a nice thing, you make progress quite fast with it. And you think, oh wow, this looks also that I can data binding in my works. But then really come into performance, you need to dip down into the documentation. And what they mean with digest, and what they mean with watchers, for example, and so on and so forth. So there are a couple of solutions for this, like remove unnecessary watches, check which types of your objects don't need to be updated all the time. For example, there are high-performance binding libraries such as bind-once. That's just tips from our side. The other thing was, that was part of the ugly talk Angular and jQuery. We use a lot of jQuery modules, which we wrote ourselves, so libraries. And the problem is you need to use $supply all the time when you combine Angular and jQuery, because Angular doesn't know anything about jQuery scope. And it's just not pretty. It's really like the code. There's everywhere. There is $supply. So I don't have actually a solution for this. Ours is when in doubt, $supply. If somebody has a better one, please come talk to me. I'm more than open to any solutions. It's a quick. This is actually almost my last slide, guys. There's no more framework approach. We just were fighting too long with making the code more maintainable, making it testable. So we definitely Angular brought up more maintainable code, more testable code. So we definitely going to go for a framework. The question, the decision which we have now for my project is to go between Angular 2.0 and Ember. So all our other applications are written with Angular 1.4. We have not had sit down and talked about the migration. I think it's kind of this thing where we hope for a good strategy at the end, or we see what happens. So at the moment it looks like we're going to go for Ember with this one, but I tell you if I'm coming back here to this talk what we decided for and how that worked out. I leave you with this picture, and thank you very much, guys, for that.
Any questions? So, with your decision, or looking into Angular 2.0 and Ember, what attracts you to Ember? Or?
So to Ember attracted us a couple of things. One is because we're using Ruby on Rails on the back end, and Ember has this kind of I've been told, I don't know Ember very well, but I've been told that it has a very close look towards Ruby on Rails, so there's a good integration between it. There's much more support for it, it seems, at the moment. And the fear is really Angular 2.0, the backward compatibility. That's the biggest fear at the moment. The disadvantage, or the thing which holds us back, we need to make a decision, but is the steep learning curve of Ember, which people always claim as a harder part.
So one of the things you talked about is getting developer consistency, so trying to get developers to do things in the same way.
Yeah.
Martin's earlier talk, he talked about ES6, and within ES6 there's a lot of new options and a lot of new things that we can do in different ways and alternative syntax to do the same thing. Do you see developer consistency becoming more or less easy to do with ES6?
I think so. We're not using ES6 at the moment. We're still using our ES5, but it's definitely a good point you're making. It definitely is part of a style guide which needs to be enforced, and probably a lot of JS hint global settings you need to set. It's a hard problem. We haven't solved it yet, to be honest. I tell this like, oh yeah, that's really solvable, but there is still inconsistencies. Believe me, guys.
Actually, a link to the Airbnb Sale guide. They've updated that for ES6.
Yes, yeah, I want to say this. Yeah, they have a really good one, guys, and it's for ES5 and ES6 as well. So I really recommend reading through that. I learned actually quite a lot about ES6 just by reading the style guide.
Anyone else? No? Cool. Thank you.